Thanks for tuning in to the Urban Scope podcast. I'm back with more hip hop news. Now, Rick Ross just announced that he will be releasing his next album on June 12th, and the next album will be titled Set in Stone. Now, this is Rick Ross's first album in almost 5 years, which is didn't feel like that long ago. But I guess he's been doing other business ventures and kind of took a hiatus away from hip hop, a little small one. But when I looked at the dates, I was like, wow, the last project he put out was 2021. It doesn't seem like that. But luckily, he's putting another project out, and I think it's at the right time. But a side note, Rick Ross probably has some of the best album title names ever in hip hop because he has titles like Rather You Than Me, God Forgives, I Don't, Richer Than I Ever Been, in addition to Port of Miami and all these other great titles he has. He never had a bad album title. And for most part, he's never had a bad album. But this is huge, I think, for hip hop fans because hip hop has been going a lot younger over the last couple of years. Now, last year proved that wrong with the release of like artists like Clips and Young Jeezy dropped a project or Jeezy dropped a project. And then Freddie Gibbs had the legendary project. And then you had all of what um, Nas's label, Mass Appeal, were releasing a lot of music from older artists, i.e., a Big L or Raekwon, and Nas dropped his project. He dropped a Slick Rick project. So it was a rejuvenation of the older artists last year, and a lot of artists, older artists, were pretty much running the game with solid projects, and we weren't just relying on singles in hip hop. Because I think that's what led to the destruction of hip hop is trying to integrate pop music too much and trying to make hits and trying to make numbers, kind of destroyed hip hop. So I think it's getting back to the roots of hip hop where it's just about the sound and the quality project, not just putting out a project with 20 songs and having maybe two good songs on it. It's about putting 10 songs out on a project and maybe having seven or eight good songs. We can get back to that. And I think Rick Ross is one of those. Well, I know Rick Ross is one of those artists that can get us there because he can give us some of his best projects have been concise about 10 songs. And I think he can get back to that mode. Now, the last couple of albums I've not been a huge fan of, but he's given us legendary projects like Trilla, Deeper Than Rap, and then of course Teflon Don, which is definitely a classic from him. And I'll talk about him in comparison to Kendrick in another section, but he definitely is one of those artists that can get us there because of his legendary flow, his sound, just his genuine love for hip hop. He's a student of the game, so he's always going to give us quality music and projects. Whether you agree with the sound or not, it's something he's trying and something that he's doing out of the pureness of his heart, not just to get numbers. So I think this is huge news for hip hop fans, especially after the Kendrick Lamar and Drake beef. Um, NBA YoungBoy is starting to rise a lot after his tour and just his huge fan bases. And Atlanta has had a lot of ups and downs since Rick Ross last dropped. The Lil Wayne slander has got under control. The ascension of AI has happened since then. And of course, I talked about the older artists starting to make a rise over the last past couple of years. So I think this is probably m- the most important album, probably next to Port of Miami for Rick Ross, just to set that trend going forward because our older artists have to produce at this clip because these younger artists are getting fans just for the singles and the TikTok reels and for just social media stands to listen to. And they're not listening to the music. They're just getting the moment out of these songs and nobody's creating any legacy. So I think this is very important for Rick Ross, especially for to make hits or make songs that can relate for the youth, but also his core fan base, those people that are what 30 and up, that they grew up listening to Rick Ross's music. So I think it's very important. But can he make an album that will resonate with the youth? Because he does make music, conscious music, but he can make club records as well and he's pretty versatile in that bag. So that's why I put Rick Ross over a lot of artists creatively because he can still make a pop record but not sell out. He can make a pop record and not change his sound. He can make a pop record and still hold true to form, and not a lot of artists can do that. It's very difficult to do, and most of your artists don't do that. Um, but I think he can recapture that sound that we know and love from Ross from the early 2000s when he first pushed out, released "Push It to the Limit" and songs like that. So I think this is very important for his legacy because when I saw the album title "Set in Stone," I thought to myself, "Was this the last project from Ross?" Because he's given us a great catalog, and he has nothing left to prove in hip hop other than maybe a Grammy, and I'm pretty sure he probably has one in some kind of way. But that's the only thing left for him, and I think if he does well with this album, this could possibly be his last album. He's reached the magical number 50. He's starting to do more in business. He owns a lot of things and has his hands in a lot of different cookie jars. And I think he would be at peace with giving up hip hop, even though I know he's a hip hop head. He's just like me for the most part as far as obtaining the music, walking miles to go pick up an album and bring it back home to listen to it on CD player and probably a cassette player back in his day. But I think the title of this album says a lot, and I think he has a lot to say on this album because a lot has going on in hip hop. Everything I talked about previously. So this possibly could be his last album because he does have a long history in hip hop dating all the way back to the 90s, all the way to now. So he's probably spent close to 4 decades in the hip hop game. So he has nothing else left to prove as he's ghost ridden and worked with the best artists and been through battles. He's done it all. So if he this is his last album, I wouldn't blame him. He's done a lot for hip hop and he's gonna go down in one of the greats. He's definitely in everybody's should be in everybody's top 20. But I think eventually he'll leave to be a full-time businessman because he can't keep touring and all these things once you get older. So I think he'll go to the business side full time. But he's one of the most consistent artists that we've had in hip hop over the past 20, 30 years. So I definitely will do another video once this album is close to releasing, or when it releases, I'll definitely do a review. But this is just a preview. So until next time, I'll see you next time.